Welcome back, monkeys. I'm Scott Pyburn.
Hey, I'm Dom DeBellis. Hey, Scott, how you doing?
Good. How you doing today, Dom?
Yeah, I'm good.
So we got an interesting topic today. I'm going to let you lead off on this.
Well, it's the last socially acceptable prejudice, and I call it fat shaming. I think that's what everybody calls it, actually. It's not my term.
No, I've heard that term before.
Fat shaming is the, we talk about how it's not okay. It's not politically correct to make fun of people or be prejudiced against people for being, minority, black, Muslim,
gay,
of any kind of ethnicity, and of course that's true. And, I'm not saying that is right. I'm saying that those things are absolutely wrong. I don't like people who discriminate on anything. Age, for example, ageism is a terrible thing.
Oh, it's horrible.
And,
it's horrible.
People get marginalized on all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I believe that the last socially acceptable prejudice is marginalizing fat people and penalizing them just for being fat. Yes. Whether that penalty is a social penalty or a financial penalty or and we'll talk about some of these. This is actually an actual issue. People are getting financial penalties for being fat. And as we explore this, people who get criticized, people who get marginalized, they get excluded. They get disenfranchised in one form or another, simply for being large.
Well, and I think it's become socially acceptable as well. Hollywood has made fun of stereotypes, and archetypes for generations. I recently saw a movie. It was a Farrelly Brothers movie. So, if you've ever seen anything done by the Farrelly Brothers, they pretty much keep the bar really, really low.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a fan. It was a Ben Stiller movie, and I'm a fan of Ben Stiller because he's put out some pretty cool things. And it was called The Heartbreak Kid. So he plays this character that wants to fall in love, finds a girl, marries a girl, and cut to the chase. The long story short, at the wedding, the girl is skinny, blonde, very attractive, supermodel-esque. The girl's mom shows up, and the girl's mom is like 450 pounds. And so the joke was basically, "Oh, honey, you're wearing my wedding dress. That's so fantastic." And Ben Stiller looks at her and looks at the girl and is like, "You mean the same style, right?" "No, the actual wedding dress." And then it's like, pan to Ben Stiller. Okay, it's the underlying cut. And it took me out of the movie. I was really enjoying the movie, and it was like, really? You kind of had to go there. You kind of had to play the fat joke card. Hollywood's done this for years. I mean, Eddie Murphy did it with the Nutty Professor remake of the Jerry Lewis franchise, where he was a fat guy that couldn't get the girl, and then drank the potion, became the skinny Eddie Murphy, yada yada yada. And it's that franchise, tried to play the both sides of the coin, which it was kind of, at the time I saw it, I thought it was funny, I laughed, but as the older I get, I thought it was, looking back on it now, it's very disingenuous to try and play both sides. You can't fat shame a character and then try and have a heartfelt happy ending at the end and justify it or make it believable.
Yeah, I mean, that trope, you're right, has been used by Hollywood a lot, and it's been exploited by other media as well. The magazines that show, only the beautiful people. And, the idea that you can't be beautiful and be also big. Yeah. The idea that, the stereotype that people automatically assume that if you are big, that you are also all these other things, which include things like being, that if you're obese or if you're overweight, that you are also some sort of filthy person or dirty person. You're unhygienic. You're lazy. You are immoral.
Yeah.
They assume your life is a wreck. People assume all of these things. You know, and that brings me actually to one of my points is that you know, society is not set up for fat people. Society is not set up for that at all.
No.
And one of the greatest examples of that is try to get on an airline as a fat person.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, all the seats are made, you know, for people with hips that are this narrow.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to fly on a budget and you fly something like Spirit, you know, or any of these other budget airlines that don't design their chairs. I mean, let's pack them in. Let's make it an Airbus, you know, and an Airbus with obviously with arms, you know. Yeah. It's not like a movie theater where you can flip that arm up.
Yeah, and you know, you just can't simply fit in one airline seat, and they make you buy a second seat, and you're like, that's pricey. Well, so much for flying coach.
There was a plus size model who recently was fat shamed on an airline, and she just totally laid into the guy, and ripped him a new one, and God bless her for doing so. It's like, really?
Was it an airline attendant who fat shamed her?
No, I believe it was a passenger.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I read an article out of the BBC News in London. She confronts a man over fat shaming during a flight, and you know, she's a very attractive young lady. She's a larger lady. And basically she was shamed because the passenger was sending mean and ugly messages about her during the flight.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, you know, it's another form of discrimination.
Well, it is, because you clearly are, you know, you're clearly discriminating.
And it's on the level of basically of racism.
Well, it's not just discrimination, and it's not just prejudice. It's hatred. You know, you know, you're using these people as the object of your scorn. You're using them as the object of your ridicule. You know, who does that? Come on. Yeah. You know.
Well, you told me recently you had a friend you were speaking with who was fat shamed by a doctor.
Oh yeah, this happens a lot. It's happened to me. Okay. You know, in recent years, part of my disability is that I gain a lot of weight. I just gain a lot of weight. I have a hormonal imbalance, and it's caused by a brain tumor that it's exceedingly difficult to lose weight, and it's exceedingly easy to gain fat.
Right, because the part of your brain that controls that is no longer there, basically.
Right, exactly. So without going into detail about that, the situation is I gain a lot of weight, and to lose it is very, very difficult. It takes a long, long time. I've managed to lose 70 pounds.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that. That's fantastic.
Well, thank you. But, I mean, I've got a long way to go. I've still got 170 pounds to lose, and I'm working on it. Yeah. But the long story short is that I've fired so many doctors because they're just useless. And some of them have been because they were only focused on my fat.
Wow.
And they were not focused on treating me. And some of them would not even touch me to examine me. There's a lot of fat shaming in medicine. There's just a lot of it.
Wow.
And doctors who will summarily judge you on your fat without probing, you know, without digging into your case, without bothering, you know, doing medicine.
Yeah.
You know, medicine is a science. And they will not bother running tests. They will not bother. They will simply conclude in their mind, their prejudice is, well, you're sick because you're fat.
Yeah.
You know, you're ill and you've got symptoms because you're fat.
Yeah.
Lose some weight, you'll be fine.
Well, and
I can't tell you how many people whose lives have been destroyed by that.
Yeah.
That is laziness. Okay? And there's no other word for it. That is indolence on the part of the doctor. And that's unacceptable. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to learn more about this, I suggest folks would Google doctor fat shaming, and you'll see that it happens a lot more than you think. You might think. You know, doctors will simply, you know, the experience is sort of like, You're not looking at my symptoms. You're just seeing my fat.
Mm-hmm.
And doctors will be like, you need to eat less and exercise more because you're obese. Yeah. And like I said, doctors won't even touch obese patients. And it's obvious to us you're disgusted by us.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that because the doctors, here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are not even nutritionists.
Oh, no.
So they can't even get into the supposed nutritional factors that will allow any individual, because in their mind we are all the same.
Yes.
There are no endomorphs, there are no ectomorphs. We're all one individual. That, well, if you eat this, this, and this, and you exercise this much, this much, this much, you should have no problem.
Right.
Because they're basically going down one road, and I think that road's called Google. That's why, they walk out and they go into the other room and Google this. Oh, yeah, okay, there you go. That's why they call it a practice. Then they walk in and, oh, this is what your problem is.
Right. So you're practicing on me. Terrific.
Yeah. So that's why they call it a practice, because you haven't gotten it perfect yet.
And most MD doctors, most MD doctors, the guys with MD after their name, they get virtually no nutritional training.
Exactly. Well, and exactly that's what I'm talking about. So they basically, and of course, their entire nutritional education is related around the FDA's food pyramid.
Yes.
Which
we all know is fakak.
Is total bunk. Yes. You eat this much, this much, this much, this much. You should weigh at 5'8". You should be 165 pounds.
Right, and your body mass index should be.
Yeah, I was 165 pounds my freshman year in high school. That was the last time I was ever 165 pounds.
Yeah.
Period. So I know exactly how it is. I go to the doctor and I say, what can I do to lose weight? And the answer is the same every time: eat less, exercise more. Although, and we'll cover this in another show because frankenfood is something I am personally highly vocal about. And
yes, me too.
We'll do a food show coming up soon about it. But they don't go into the fact that the foods we're consuming are not real foods. I got one of the best advices ever from a doctor, and I'm trying to take it to heart regarding eating. And it's basically go into the store, go into the produce aisle, go into the meat aisle, get what you need, and leave.
Yes.
And that's it. And that's it. Don't go down the aisles, because then you're no longer consuming food. You're consuming food-like product.
That's right. I completely agree with that.
But again, that's a different show, and we'll go down that road at some point.
And I'm glad, because that's a great show. That would be a great show.
Yeah.
I want to talk about a little bit about how insurance companies, and particularly under Obamacare in the last few years, they've actually been allowed to punish fat people. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about how precisely that happens.
Well, it's not
under Obamacare. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say it's not just. I'm sorry, I was squirreling on you. It's not just Obamacare, but it's also companies themselves.
Yes.
Are setting up lose weight things in the office or whatever, and they'll give you a discount on your insurance if you weigh under this many pounds or whatever. And
Obamacare has rules that allow companies to have certain wellness programs. They disguise them as wellness programs. Which sounds great on the surface. Mm-hmm. But what they're tagged to, the metrics that they're tagged to, is body mass index, BMI, mm-hmm. right?
Which is based on the USDA's food pyramid.
It's all really messed up, because if you have a body mass index that is of a certain number, you will then have to pay $50 more a month or $25 more a month, depending on what that number is, right? For your health insurance. Mm-hmm. And the Obamacare law, right, the Affordable Care Act, allows for that. And so companies are exploiting that, because companies are trying to save a buck or two anywhere they can. So they're setting up these wellness programs, right? So an employee can then be tapped on the shoulder by their HR people and be like, hey, listen, your body mass index is too high, so if you don't do anything about that, we're going to be taking a little bit extra out of your paycheck every 2 weeks. And you're like, okay, first of all, why is HR telling me what I should weigh? Second of all, is this America or what?
Right.
You know, and why are you punishing me for my shape? Or why are you punishing me for my... I mean, it just sounds so, like, weird and Big Brother and,
Yeah.
you know. So that's another example of fat shaming. And it's happening by your employer.
Yeah.
Thanks, employer.
Yeah, I mean, it's being disguised, like, under a social justice issue, basically. You know,
Yeah, but it's not.
But it's not. You know, and I see that there's going to be lawsuits, if there hasn't been already, for people basically saying, again, yeah, you're discriminating against me because I'm overweight.
Right.
So I mean, they tried doing this with smokers. You know, I mean, ban the smokers. You can't smoke inside. You can't smoke outside the building. You got to be 50 feet away from the building. You know, and we're gonna. And insurance companies do that. That's one of the first questions they ask you now when you apply for insurance. Do you smoke? Have you ever smoked?
When's the last time you smoked?
And if you have, what did you smoke? When did you smoke? How much did you smoke? Because that's the big one. That's the automatic. Okay, your rates just jumped up 10% because you're a smoker. So when do they enact that law that say, well, you know, your BMI is 10% over where it should be for your age and your weight, so that's 10% more. But
Let me tell you, that's another point. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no, it's fine.
That just brought to mind. That is another thing that I have doctors. So I see several physicians because of my condition.
Mm-hmm.
I'm disabled. Just in case our audience doesn't know that already, I'm a disabled person. So I see several doctors for my condition, and so every time I see a doctor, the first thing they do is they weigh me, they take my blood pressure, and what else do they do? I guess they take my temperature.
Yeah, sometimes weight, height, temperature. Yeah.
So height too. So every time they take my blood pressure, they have this surprised look on their face, and I always make a point of making eye contact with them and saying, "Surprised?" because my blood pressure is always 120 over 80.
Yeah. And
it just stuns them because they look at me like as if to say, and sometimes they'll do it again because they're like, that can't be right.
Yeah.
Because DeBellis is a fatty.
Yeah, because apparently
you know?
you're too fat to have that good of blood pressure.
Right. Yeah. You've got to have like clogged arteries and stuff.
Yeah.
But in fact, I don't.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, I have excellent triglycerides and excellent blood pressure and excellent all of this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
And cholesterol and all of that. But they're like, but we should give you all of these drugs anyway. And I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah. Well,
I don't have clogged arteries. I don't have triglycerides. I don't have heart disease.
No.
So I'm not taking your drugs. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, what I want to touch base on, Dom, is the fact that a lot of this fat shaming. I mean, I grew up a fat kid. Okay, I was Charlie Brown. I had heat-related asthma because of my weight as a child, which eventually I grew out of. But I was literally the last one picked for tag, for kick the can, you name it. If we were doing bubblegum in a dish, how many pieces do you wish? I was always the last one, you know, not to get a piece of bubblegum, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think a lot of the issues with obesity and fat shaming in our country stem to the fact that obesity is really tied and related to poverty.
Totally.
If you look at, I used to be a professional chef, and I would watch a lot of these food documentaries, Food Inc., King Corn, What the Health are a few. And basically there was one in, I think, Food Inc., where it talked to a poor Hispanic family, and they feed their kids McDonald's every day because it's easier and more filling to give them a 99-cent hamburger than it is to give them a piece of fruit. And fruit is more expensive than a hamburger, which makes absolutely no sense to me. You know, this is fundamentally the problem in our country, is that Frankenfood is cheaper than fresh food.
And I still refute that. I will refute that till my dying day.
Well, it's not cheaper, but you know what I'm saying? It's one of those things where it's literally...
Yeah.
It's cheaper, you know?
But it's not cheaper. Like, I go to the market every week, and I get, I understand the story because I've heard it repeated so many times, but I just don't I don't know. I think that the fact is that it's not cheaper, but it's more expensive for people to go out to the supermarkets
Well,
or to the grocery because they don't exist in their neighborhoods.
well, also, Dom, but you got to realize, and this is where I have an advantage over you because I have a 14-year-old little girl, and we go to the
Yes.
store all the time, and she will go through like 4 pounds of cherries a week, and cherries sometimes are $5.99 a pound. Now it doesn't
Right.
matter, it doesn't mean I have to buy cherries. I can buy her apples, I can buy her oranges, I can
Sure,
buy her
sure, sure.
watermelon, I can buy her cantaloupe.
Right.
She's going to consume it like she's consuming candy.
Right.
And that I think is the point at the heart of the issue where if I do take her to McDonald's and I get her a burger or a Happy Meal, it fills her up. Like, and then she won't eat and because the food is unhealthy, it's filled with fillers, it's frankenfood, it's unnatural versus real food that your body will metabolize and metabolize quickly,
Right.
you know.
It's scary, right?
It's very scary. It is very scary indeed. And that is essentially the point, of how it's cheaper to buy a cheeseburger than it is to buy a pound of fruit.
So the question is then, why are there no healthy fast food restaurants
There should be, and
that just serve healthy fast food?
absolutely that's a question I've asked myself as a former hospitality professional a lot. And people are like, well, Scott, why don't you open one? And it's like, yeah, that's a whole nother ball of wax story. There's a lot into opening a restaurant other than just having an idea.
Yes.
I think it's a lot of the corporations and the government. Basically, they don't want us to be thin. They don't want us to be skinny. They don't want us to be healthy. There's no profit in people being skinny.
They want customers.
Yeah. Doctors are in the business of treating illnesses.
Yeah.
Whether it's you're obese, whether it's you have ADD, whether you have depression, whether you have cancer. There's no profit in it.
Yeah.
And
They want to monetize you.
And food is controlled by the corporations. People don't know where the food comes from, and most of the time they don't care. That's also part of the problem. Is there's not a lot of food education out there. Food is marketed to kids. McDonald's doesn't sell hamburgers. They sell toys. They are the largest toy producer in the world. Think about it.
The movie tie-ins, the
Yeah.
characters, yes, absolutely.
And that high endorphin factor, which is the same as whether you smoke a cigarette or you have an orgasm or you eat a chocolate chip cookie, that I feel so good. That is designed in the fast food that we consume. It's designed specifically to reach a certain sugar level, a certain sugar salt level ratio that tingles the pleasure centers in our brain.
It's addiction, right?
Yeah, it's addiction. It's a form of addiction. And so a piece of
But it's
fruit,
engineered addiction.
it's engineered addiction. So we're engineered to crave that feeling every time we consume food. So when you go to the grocery store and you buy a piece of fruit and that fruit's not in season or was picked a little bit early, et cetera, that natural product that we should be eating and consuming on a regular basis is not the same every single time. You go to McDonald's here, you go to McDonald's in China, you're going to get the exact same Big Mac. I mean, sometimes there's cultural differences. They don't, some cultures don't eat meat. You may not get the same experience in India. But what I'm saying is a Big Mac is a Big Mac is a Big Mac. It is chemically controlled, chemically produced to give you the same endorphin experience every single time. Fruit, unfortunately, does not have that advantage.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with fruit.
Me too. Well, and the other issue with fat shaming, Tom, is have you seen these commercials with Sonobello? They don't even call it liposuction anymore. They call it body contouring.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's liposuction, and they're showing morbidly obese people, and they're doing the before and the pan after, and call for a free consultation. You could be thin tomorrow. I mean, they're promising the lie,
Yeah.
And here's the thing: I'm 45 years old. I am no longer 18. I am not as skinny as I used to be. I am what I am. Do I want to lose weight? Do I want to get healthier? Yes. But am I ashamed of my body, who I am? No. I still go to the pool, Because you know what? If you don't like it, I don't care.
Yeah.
Because fat shaming is also a state of mind. It's allowing somebody to crawl into your head and corrupt your own self-image of yourself.
Right. It's a complicated thing, though, because, we've built an entire society on superficiality.
Mm-hmm.
And, we've programmed children from cradle to grave, right? So we've programmed children with messages that their bodies are not good enough.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Unless they meet a certain standard.
Yeah.
And so it's fine to say that, if you don't like my body, then, the hell with you. But the reality is that you've got kids who are constantly comparing themselves to the paradigm of what they see in magazines, what they see on television, they see on the internet as being presented as the ideal.
Yeah.
Women are supposed to look like this, and men are supposed to look like that.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then they're less than.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's no plus size Barbie.
So am I enough?
Yeah.
And a little girl is going to ask that from the point as soon as she can recognize those images.
Yeah.
Right. And a little boy is also going to recognize those images. So everything from eating disorders, which are so destructive, right? Mm-hmm. To this epidemic of liposuction and body contouring and gastric bypass and all these other drastic surgeries that people do, body modifications that people do. It's because they look at the paradigm, and then they look at themselves and they find themselves wanting.
Right.
And the marketers out there are bombarding them. Mm-hmm. They're just burying them, all of us, with these messages.
Well, think about it. And again, I brought up the plus size Barbie. I think they actually did make one plus size Barbie at one time. But there's no fat Barbies. There's no fat Bratz dolls. There's no fat superheroes. Wonder Woman is
that's a great point.
Wonder Woman is an Amazon goddess, and God bless Wonder Woman. We did a show about that. It's the year of the woman.
All of the superheroes have 6-pack abs.
Yeah, or 32 double D breasts and tight butts, and no belly fat or no body fat, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they've all got tight pecs and great big, arms and everything.
These are the stereotypes and the archetypes that our kids are aspiring to be.
Right.
And unfortunately, the plus size person, the person that has bad genetics and is just born behind the curve and will not ever be that thin, is going to be relegated to being depressed and being a misfit and being outcast because they have no hero to look up to. And I think that's sad.
Well, so how can we, encourage our kids,
Well, I treat my daughter. I don't discuss issues like that. My daughter eats like a horse. God bless her. I love that. Her metabolism. I mean, she has fat genes in her family. They're going to kick in eventually, and we keep telling her this. But we don't do it. We don't do it to shame her. If you're hungry, I'll feed you. Do you want something else to eat? Did you have enough to eat? Because I grew up in that. I grew up in the stereotypical clean your plate. Don't leave it.
Right.
Food is precious. Food. There's starving children in Africa.
Yeah.
You better eat that. If if you take it, eat it.
Hey, Mom, do you got a stamp? I got to send my food to Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I don't want it.
Well, it's basically if you take it, eat it, which is not a healthy healthy thing either. I don't force my daughter to do that. I don't force her to clean her plate. When she's full, she's full. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to force her to do that because then that's gonna make her obese, because that's what I did. Oh, I got to finish that? Okay, I'm full. I don't really have room for it, but my mom and my dad and my grandfather, my grandmother, they're watching me, so I have to finish this plate.
Right.
Or you'll sit at the dinner table until you finish your food, 4 hours later. That's also part of the fat shaming issue.
My problem was I never put the food in my plate to begin with. I'm like, you all are piling food in my plate, and like you're piling seconds on.
Yeah.
And I'm like telling you I don't want the seconds.
Yeah.
Like part of no thank you did you not get?
Yeah, Ray Romano did a great stand-up bit years ago about that. You know, growing up in an Italian family, I think you can relate to that, where it's like, you know, yeah, if you tell my mom, you know, I want you want a little bit more, boom, you get a whole second meal. You know, and in order to basically avoid having anything left on your plate, you literally have to kill my mother.
Yeah. And since that's off-putting for people,
yes.
You know, not really an option.
But I think in the end, and we're coming to the end of our show, the reality of it is if we're not careful, we're going to end up like Wall-E. You know, we're all going to be floating around 350 pounds in our floating chairs while the robots serve us.
Right.
You know, and that is a cautionary tale, I think. You know, not a shaming tale. I think it's just say, hey, you know, be who you are. Go out and get some exercise. You know, eat healthy and do what you can.
Yeah.
I think, you know, fat shaming will continue to be an issue, but for all of you out there who are struggling with self-confidence and issues of feeling comfortable in your skin, this took me a long time, and I have struggles with it once in a while, but I say to you, be comfortable in your skin.
Yeah.
Because you know, like as the song goes, you are beautiful, you know, no matter who you are.
It's really true.
And don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
Yeah, man.
You know? But that's all I have. Thanks for joining us today. With that, I'm Scott Piber.
I love you guys. I'm Dom DeBellis.
Thanks for watching. Hey, leave us some comments below. You know, we really want to hear your feedback on this issue. I've got a lot of friends who are not skinny mini supermodels, and I say that with love because I love you regardless of who you are. But just leave us some comments and let us know, you know, what some of the things you've gone through. Okay?
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.
Looking forward to it, guys. Bye-bye.